our first two albums, High Voltage and TNT, they had come out as separate albums in Australia, where we come from. So they thought, well, what we'll do is those tracks that are not on there, we'll try and release them. So it was a case of them trawling through and finding tracks that had not been released and coming to us saying, we want to put these tracks out. So that's how that Jailbreak came about. And it had been I think the song itself, I think, came out in '74 in Australia. And it was at the time it was a hit for them, wasn't it, or something? Yeah. One of our very few, but single hits. So I think they thought that they would, like Dirty Deeds, throw out something that was, they had found in the vaults. Well, where were we? High Voltage. High Voltage. I think that sums up pretty much the band in general, the title, and the title itself. It just, in the beginning, it was our way of saying, what was AC/DC? It was just a high voltage, band, full of energy and lightning and power and stuff. So that's what always sticks in my, and it sticks in my own head, and it was a way of describing your sound, wasn't it? Yeah. High voltage rock and roll. At the time, it was a bit of a how do you call it? Again, from like a kiddies cartoon thing. There used to be when I was young. There was this cartoon with a sea serpent and some guy called Beanie
and Cecil.
But the bad guy in it was this guy, Dishonest John, and he used to pop out every now and again. He'd pop up with this card, and it went "Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap," and special rates, holidays, and and Sundays. So, and I used to think, as a kid, I always thought that it always stuck in my head. So it seemed a good idea, to come up with a title like that, especially from this band, And we thought it would be cool too if you done it like a bit Humphrey Bogart kind of way, where you've got the shady office and the shady detective guy, and he's running this operation called Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. That whole album, it was like a guitar album, wasn't it?
Yeah. We sort of kept the songs quite short in that, and then we thought, just from touring, especially in the States, we thought we need a little bit more hard edge rock here too, rather than. So me and Angus said, we want more louder guitars. We want bigger solos, and let's take it to the max with this. Yeah. And it came off, and it didn't really. It went really well in Europe, that album, but in the States it was still a little, not maybe radio airplay. It was very disco around that time,
So it was a good attack.
Bee Gees and things like that. So
it was a good frontline attack. Yeah.
And there was a lot of rock music around, but it was sort of soft rock. So it was our answer to that kick up the butt. And
we wanted a good guitar album, and because you had the different trends of the time, but then you had punk music coming out of Europe. You had America was into the disco thing, so, and we thought it'd be totally different. Hey, we'll go out there and make a good hard rock album, with plenty of guitars up front, and we thought that was the, be our calling card, So if you were going to go see AC/DC, you knew you were going to get these big, loud, brash guitars in your face, and there'd be no room for the timid.
We went to rock and roll there. We just decided at the time we would lay down a good rock and roll album. And try and get back to our original, our influences when we got together with Bond, which was like Little Richard and
Jerry Lee Lewis,
and the Chuck Berrys, and really, but sort of putting a rock edge to it.
We didn't want to just make something stupid, like cardboard cutouts. We wanted to keep the music raw and basic, but we wanted to try different things with it, put it, see if we could come up with, a good rock and roll tune with just minimum stuff in it, like what you would hear from guys like Chuck Berry.
Like Rock and Roll Damnation
and tracks like that.
It was almost because the radio weren't picking up on, even with the rock. Let It Be Rock. It never really got a lot of airplay, so it was us sort of having a go at with Rock and Roll Damnation. So we were out to prove otherwise with that. We weren't deep about it, but we were determined to at least. But we loved the songs, so and it was just great making that album.
And we called it Powerage again, as like what Malcolm said earlier, because we had that, that association with the lightning and the power and the high voltage thing. And we just thought it would be a good way to describe a new coming of age. And we said, well, what age are we living in? You're like, well, you get the Stone Age, the Power Age, and Fred and Barney weren't touring. So you had all of that sort of stuff going on. When you look in history, they say, well, this is the Stone Age and this is the Iron Age when they came out with the sword. And we said, well, what age are we living in? This is, we were in the 20th century, so we said, well, it's the Power Age.
As an album, it was live, and it put the best of what we had at the time for the hardcore audiences, and it was recorded, and the band played great that night. We didn't fix anything on that. There was nothing required. It was just we were in front of an amazing crowd, and if you want blood, you got it. It's like a saying, It's like, I remember seeing a band years ago who were dying, and the guy said, "What do you want? Fucking blood?" to the audience, and it always stuck in our heads. That, but we turned it around. If you want blood, you got it, and that said it all. See, the title said it all. We were touring constantly, and then we have 3 weeks off. We'd be in the studio. And some nights doing club gigs in Sydney to help pay expenses. Still, we never really made much money back then. We were always broke. We were always borrowing off Angus because he was the only one that didn't drink.
And somebody had to be sober.
But it made a bit of space for us to get the songs together for Highway to Hell, ideas, and then that was the album that really happened for us in the States. It went gold, and Highway to Hell just got them by the throat. The track itself, the title track, that sent the religious maniacs after us. It did everything it shouldn't have done in that era.
It's kind of funny, really, because when they first came out, they said the album, you had people at the time were saying, oh, you should call it that, especially on the American side, and they were saying, it won't get played in the southern parts, it won't get, and funny enough, it was like they were the first places to start playing it.
Jacksonville's and places like
all
that.
Down the south, and that was the first areas that started picking it up, so we thought, hey, we're doing something wrong, all right.
and the track itself was just, had all sorts of connotations put to it, but if you listen to the lyrics, it was our 6 years
on the road,
so non-stop.
It was our way of describing the 3 words or less. It was Highway to Hell, and it was nice and simple, and it was just describing your life on the road. Because we had the title track, it was also a good track, a solid track that got us a lot of airplay, especially on the rock radio, and it started to change the mold, of the radio and stuff at that time, and you started getting back into, there's harder music coming back into play again, and the disco thing was
dying,
was on its way to.
They would call it death to disco, wasn't it?
That's right.
They would smash, they'd put a Bee Gee record on for 10 seconds and go and then stick on Highway to Hell, rock's back,
and it's pissed. Well, Back in Black is, I suppose it, you know, you got the black cover and you've got everything. For us at the time, it was, you know, we had lost our singer Bon Scott, and it was as a band, our tribute to him. So we felt, you know, it would be good if we came up with a title that we felt summed it all up, and you know, Back in Black seemed, you know, a good title. And we also felt, well, we wanted the cover in black, and we wanted you know, it to be black. It was more respect, you know, like, you know, if you're in mourning you wear black. So that was our tribute to him, so that's how the title come about, and the cover and the whole album, wasn't it?
That's right. And it was yeah, Mutt Langer too, he was, because he'd done Highway to Hell with us, that was the first album. So when we got to Back in Black, you know, he knew the pressure that was on, you know, because and that was his real first success as a producer, and with Highway to Hell. So the pressure was on himself too to come up with something better, which we wanted to carry on. And when we got over Bon's death, we thought, well, you know, another thing kicks in then, because you've lost somebody, and it makes it all more meaningful to us to come up with some good stuff, you know, some really good stuff, some different stuff, you know, something that can really show that we want to stay around too, you know, and the combination of Mutt and with the band and the pressures on from both sides, you know, producers, management, band management, and we had to get away from all of that. So we went to the Bahamas. And the first day, everyone had their shorts on, running around in little mini bikes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the next day, and we'd gone into the studio, and everyone come in with their shorts on because it's really hot there. No one could play their guitars with shorts on except for Angus. so we all went, fuck this, let's get our jeans and fucking t-shirts on and get back in here and just like and lock ourselves in this studio, and that way it put us back into the serious side of it all. We had a day of sunlight. That was the end of it.
That's right.
And then we just buried our heads into it, and we had some already great ideas to go on. So we just worked and worked. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of moments in that album that we could have done without, but it all made the record better because of you know, we were pushing harder and harder for more rock, and you know, Mutt was looking for commercial success, and we wanted harder rock. But the whole thing came out fine, where we were both happy. You know, band and producer were happy, and you know, and I think that's what made it such an exceptional album. There was a lot. You know, there was the mourning in there for Bon, there was, and the pressure, and
even the pressure, you know, like his mouth says, you get to, because the title Back in Black, and you know, and everyone says, oh, and the cover's in black, and it's what they're really putting all their you know, lucky numbers out there, aren't they? You know, here they are, they've just lost a singer, you know, they've got that against them. Not many bands could go out there and try and recover from that, you know. And he says, and then they want to call their album Back in Black, and then they want it in a black cover, and everything seemed bleak. You know?
That's right. And once they heard, we never let them hear a track at all. So when we actually delivered the album, I think they were stunned
when they heard it. When they
heard the music, then they let this go. This is going to be big, and you know, it took a while. Actually, it was a creeper. Back in Black, it crept up the charts. I think when we toured there. We left. It was around 50s or something in the charts. It crept from like 180 over like 3 or 4 month period. And we got back to England, the tour was over, and we got a call, your album's top 10. You know, and it sold something like, one of the calls was it sold 1 million alone just in LA. So we were going, what? You're having us on, you know? It's, We missed all the the accolades in the States.
We missed all that.
We were locked up in another little studio in London working on the next one.
Right. And there was some guy trying to buy my tour jacket. I remember that one. And he's going, "Hey, I'll give you $5,000 for that." And I went, "Make it 6, it's yours." You know? That's when I knew it was something. You know? For those about the rock, well, I suppose what sums that up is probably the title in itself. It comes from there was a book once written about the Roman Empire at the time, and of course the title was "For Those About to Die, We Salute You," and I just thought we'd been fooling around with this idea. We'd been in a rehearsal room in Mount, and I had this little guitar intro thing going, and we had this very moody beginning, and it just kind of reminded me of that Roman thing, you know, the guy with doing his fist over his arm, and then he's got his sword up, you know, and then they tell the emperor, you know, "For those about to die, we salute you." And I just thought it'd be a good title for for a rock album. I just thought "For Those About the Rock," you know. Flick of the switch. Well, where do we do? Bahamas again, weren't we? We were back in the Bahamas for that one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we went back after the big productions with Mutt, and Mutt he'd moved on to sort of things, you know, other areas, and we just thought, well, we'll just go back and be what we were. And we'll just knock down a raw album, basically. No production, no big production, just get in there. Let's just put this out. It's against the grain, but let's just do it. Because the MTV world had come around, the big video world, and we hadn't yet worked with David Mallet or people like that yet. Any other time we made a video, it was a real cheap, nasty little job. So we just went to that, basically. We made the album in 3 weeks. We just thought, we'll put some headbanging tunes in. The fans wanted it raw again, the hardcore. We said, let's give it to the kids. Let's throw it out there and see how it goes. And it didn't do that well, to be honest. But so that was, they say that was our biggest flop. It's we still like it, you know. There's some good tracks on it, you know.
Flying. We made that in Switzerland, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounded like
the mountain air. The mountain air. And I think with those albums, Flying the Wall and Flick of the Switch, you know, there were a lot of good ideas that we felt, if you thought about it, that we could have taken them and done more with them. So I think if we'd have put more time with some of the ideas we had, we could have come up with even probably better albums at the time. The writer, the horror guy, Stephen King, and I forgot his name for a second. But he approached. He come one day to the label and asked could he speak to me and Malcolm, because he had this idea. He wanted one of his short stories that he had, and he came and he said he was a big fan of you know, what we had done, and he was showing us in some of his older books where he'd used lyrics out of some of our tracks, and he was telling us he was a big fan, and he wanted to know if we'd be involved with his he had this movie idea that he wanted to base on his short story, which was what was the name of it? That shows you how good I am with the name of the movie. Maximum Overdrive, that was it. Overdone. But he had this idea, and he had the big movie guy. What was his name?
Hitchcock.
No, not Alfred. No. Dino De Laurentiis. Yeah. And
the Romans.
That's right. Yeah, this Italian guy who impressed us no end. But he was telling us that he was going to try his hand at directing a film, and he called it that, wasn't it, Maximum Overdrive or something. And he wanted to know if we do some music for it. Well, it started off kind of, he asked if he could get a couple of songs, and he wanted to use tracks like You Shook Me, And then he came later to us and he said, how would you like to go to the Bahamas again? You know, all expenses paid for by the movie people, and if you just go there and write me some score music, you know. So we thought, hey, well, it's something different. We'll try, you know. So we all packed up, didn't we? And we had been on tour at the time. So, and at the end of the tour, we packed off, went to the Bahamas again. We set up a studio, and then just done some, you know, instrumental music, you know, for this movie of his, you know. And then it come about that way, didn't it? Who made who?
Yeah, we had some ideas from the road, and we had the producers who done our earlier stuff at the time, Vanda Young, so we got together with them, and because we figured they're, you know, we're not smart enough to get around these movie people. It's Hollywood you're working with now. They brought in a musical director and what have you, but we sort of locked him out the studio after the first day, you know. And we just said about what we needed for them. You know, we said, what do you need? Oh, we need 5 or 6 themes. Okay, we'll give you.
Can you act?
But the best thing to come out of it was the instrumentals were quite good on it at the time. But Who Made Who did, you know, we came up with that track, and Stephen King hated it. But he ended up, he heard it a couple of times. He said, oh, I've listened to the lyrics, I've listened to it all, and it's actually, I can see it more now. Who Made Who? He didn't know what we were talking about,
you know.
But when you watch
we'd actually watched these films. Yeah.
We thought it should have been made into a comedy, to be honest, you know. But he come to see us later on after. He came up in, where was he? Maine, he came to see us playing, and he came backstage with his 6-pack, you know, and he sat down and he had a beer with us all, and he said, well, the only thing that worked in that movie was the music. The movie was crap. He thought it was. He says, I'll never direct another movie in my life, and he hasn't, I believe. Yeah. But he's a nice guy, and the thing that impressed me in Angus was we've got this track, and it was off which album was it off? Ain't No Fun Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire.
That was off one of our earlier from Dirty Deeds.
Yeah, and it's like an 8.5 minute track,
right, yeah.
And it's all just 8.5 minutes of verse lyrics, each different, and it trips along forever. You know, it's and he put that on. And he sat there miming the whole thing through. Yeah. So he's a big
karaoke with King. You know?
He's a big fan. It wasn't a commercial tune. This thing. This was just it's probably about 12 or 14 verses in it, and he had it all off perfect.
Even the ad libs, you know.
So we thought, well, we'll do it for him because he certainly is a fan, you know. And, but at the end of the day, I mean, I've seen the movie again. I mean. And it's, you know, it's not up there with the great movies of the world, but for some of the crap that comes out these days, it's not too bad, you know. Well, that was MTV again, you know, with the big budgets, and you know, and they wouldn't play us really because, you know, we weren't MTV friendly. It was all around, you know, when the rock music all got dressed up again, you know, with the satin and all the crap that went with it, you know. So it was a sort of us just trying to say screw MTV, you blow it up, you know, and let's get back to some, you know, rock and roll again.
Malcolm and myself, we really sat down, put our heads together, and said, well, we got to come up with something that, you know, is certainly better than what we've been doing for the past few years, didn't we?
That's right. Yeah.
So it was really. We got stuck into the, you know, really writing the songs and ideas, and you know, and that's where like tracks like the Thunderstruck came off. Razor's Edge was another good track, and we had other songs on there with a bit tongue in cheek, you know, Mistress for Christmas,
Money Talks,
and we just felt we wanted to try and you know, spend a bit more time at the right and get a good album. And then in working, we got involved with Bruce Fairbairn, and well, he's no longer with us, but you know, that was good too. A good, well, it was a good combination, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was very much like a 9 to 5 type producer, which was different for us. But when you went in, you know, you got
he was really
all the time, you know.
Yeah.
So he kept it moving all the time and interesting, you know. And we'd already basically arranged the songs ourselves. Everything else, it was all ready to go. There wasn't any thinking to be done. Just had to go in and play. Good.
Yeah.
And he was great with getting the sounds together for us. He got the sounds within a day, and we just went on a roll from there with him. And that was just probably one of the easiest albums
we'd ever done,
because we'd gone in fully prepared with the music. And
plus, he was he was a guy that was just so. He was just so an ordinary Joe type guy. He was not hip. He was not, you know, a guy. You sat down and was wanting to, you know, hey man, we're going to do this and this will be cool and that'll be cool. And he was just a very ordinary working, as Mal says, you know, a kind of 9 to 5 guy. You know, hey, we get in and we, you know, which for us is great, you know, because you get a guy that goes, hey, I want to get you a great amp sound, you know, good guitar sounds, and everything to do with your music, not how you looked, with grooming, you know, not worrying about, you know, the pop star image or commerciality and stuff. And it was really good for us, wasn't it, working with him?
Yeah, no, it's like I say, it was just, we was always working, you know. There was, you never got bored, you know. You could, it's a go and have a cup of tea, I'll get Cliff in now, we'll work on some stuff, and, you know, and he kept each member
active.
Well, you never got bored sitting around waiting, you know.
You weren't getting, you know, sitting there growing culture, you know, bacteria.
And but the most strange thing was he was a trumpet player. But he was diverse. He could produce anything, you know. Really, he was well trained in that area, you know. But he loved. He tried for years to get a hold of the band, you know, and so when we finally walked in there, you know, I mean, he knew exactly how to get. He had replicas of my guitar, replicas of Angus's, and the same amps we use. He had, you know, he was trying to, because other bands had come to him before us and said, we want to sound like AC/DC, so he was used to setting up that sound. So when we walked in, it was you know,
for him it was a gift. He said, well, I've got the guys who they want, you know, I can see how you do it, so, you know, that was for him, it was a good thing. So you had a good working thing going, you know. You never had to, one of the few guys that you didn't have to, if you said, hey, I don't like this, he went, right, we'll do this, you know, we'll move on. He never pegged you in, did he?
Yeah.
Ballbreaker. Well, that was with
Mr. Rubin.
Mr. Rubin.
That was hard. Yeah, there was a man that wasn't around the studio too often. Well, he used to like a good drum sound, really, you know, and
he worked with us for, again, we done
Big Gun.
It was for a movie thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, and Arnold had asked for us to do it. He wanted a title track for his film, and we had to come up with something quick. And Rick Rubin had been asking for years if he could try. He wanted to, you know, make an album with us. So we thought, well, you know, here's an opportunity. We can get one. We can do. We'll do a track with him and see how it goes, instead of, you know, locking ourselves into an album. So we went there and worked with him for that track, didn't we? And at the time, the track worked out okay, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he was, you know, but he said he wanted to get a more rock-based thing with the band to do an album. So, you know, we were still writing at the time with material. So when we finally walked in, you know, we basically, we knew what we wanted, and he was working on sounds, and if there's this little part here, maybe you could change this or what have you. But Hard as a Rock was a track really that stuck out from that album. You know, that's a gem, you know. And when we go in places like especially France and Spain, and you play that tune, the little guitar riff at the front, it's like a choir singing out there. They all la 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 to it, la 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 la. It's almost like being in a big cathedral or something when that cranks up, you know. And the Ballbreaker and that was fun. We, you know, it gave us the big ball at the start of the show. You know, just smash the wall down, and the band had
one of the few bands to wreck the stage before they begin. Everyone else done it at the end. We done it at the beginning.
Yeah, we thought we'd show a bit of opulence, you know, destroy the stage before you even go on. Yeah, stiff up the lip. Well, that was really getting back to a bit of good old rock and roll again. And we got George, our brother, in again, because he, you know, he's a rock and roll, and he's just right through his blood, you know. And we had Mike Fraser with the sound, who's, you know, he dials it up for us. He's, you know, he's a huge fan of the band, and the two of them together, they just gave us the freedom to just play. We had the songs all ready to go when we were in the studio, and we just had that freedom of performance.
And it was good to kick off because it was the thing was you're going into the year 2000, and up till that point, you know, in fact, I remember all the talk was then about some bug, you know, about computer virus going to take out the world, this Y2K bug. And you know, it was going to be like a mini doomsday thing. And you know, what was good was kicking off that, you know, going into the new century with the, you know, when everyone else was doing, you know, into this thing at the time, you know, dance music, boy bands, etc. It was just good for us to come up with a, you know, to, you know, begin, you know, a new era with a, you know, a bit of toe tap and rock and roll, and you know, take it from there when everyone else was, you know, completely, you know, going away from it. So for us, it was good.
Yeah, it was just back to the roots with it, you know. And then the older you get, the more of the rock and roll from the 50s and early 60s is, you know, it's like your childhood, you know. It comes back more and more, and we just felt there was a lot more to be had here, you know, inspiration. So, you know, that all went into that album, and it's the fans loved it, you know. They just, this is where you should have been, around fly on the wall. You know what I mean? So it was great, and it was.
And it was still good just to go out there again and do, you know, rock and roll again when everyone else is, you know, searching where do we go next? Is it hip hop? Is it rap? Or is it boy bands? Is it girl singers? Is it, you know, belly dancers, whatnot, you know, things like this. You know, and you come out with a, you know, just a, you know, piece of rock and roll, which is, hey, it's not different.
And it's great to watch like 25,000 kids out there all going, I was born with a stiff upper lip. You know, and that's stuff from the 50s, really, you know. And you got kids in 2002 or 3 who just relate straight to it. You know, it just shows you that rock and roll is always going to be here. You know, it's always going to be around, and it's always been the good time music. You know, it's got sex, music, you know, hard living. It's
a party atmosphere. You know, you got, you know, as he says, you know, you got, you got wine, women, and song in that order. You know what musicians do so well.
Back in Black, as it was a tribute to Bond, but the fans wanted anything of Bond's that hadn't been heard before. So we went through everything we could, you know. Like we were mentioning Rosie earlier, we had another backing track for that. We had a working title at the time called Dirty Eyes. They found that with a guide vocal from Bon on it. So there was 3 or 4 tracks.
Different live things that we didn't think existed, you know, from some club dates that we had done when we were younger. There was a few of those, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we sort of plucked out as much as we could for one of the CDs to put it through with stuff that Let There Be Rock. We'd done a video of that. The master tapes had gone
missing,
and there was only a stereo mix left. So we managed to get that and at least put it on a CD for the fans anyway, because they'd always wanted it. Because it was a great performance. It's sad that we can't find the multi-track recordings for it. You know, we searched long and hard for them, but we ended up with a 1/4-inch 2-track that went to CD. But it was almost like a bonus thing in amongst all the Bond material, you know. But I mean, it's a great box set, though. I mean, the fans were maybe a little disappointed at first because there wasn't more of rarities of Bond, but there's just nothing there. It's just one of those things in life. Everything we recorded, we used, you know, and we'd used at different times with him. So, but that was good putting that together, because we got old radio interviews together, things like that from Bond, stuff I hadn't heard. And I was sitting there listening, and he was teaching me things from, you know, I didn't know that happened, you know, things that, you know, I mean, you almost feel like answering him sometimes, because it was that, you know, it was from radio and stuff. It's, you go, I can't remember that. You find you talking to a speaker, you know. But it's quite, it was good to put it together, you know. And again, we all had smiles on our faces, you know, as you're doing it. It didn't, you know, it was all good fun. It was all the good side of Bond, you know.
And it was good listening to some of the, you know, when Mal played me some of the club stuff that they found, you know, and you'd hear that for the first time. And I'd never heard, I didn't even know they existed. And then you hear the band in that raw state, and you're going, wow. And it sounded so good, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know? And you're going, hey, was that us?